Coming up, we need to talk about Brexit, because Boris Johnson's government certainly don't want to. Before we get into it, please remember to like, subscribe and get notified of new videos every Wednesday and every weekend. It struck me listening to the 50-minute long budget speech this year that rishier than the Queen Sunak used the word Brexit only once. It's like the government are trying to pretend they really did get Brexit done as they promised their supporters at the last election. And the right-wing media, including the BBC, ITV and Sky, are going along with it. But the truth is, Brexit is far from done. In fact, as of now, Britain still has virtually all the same EU standards in place as before Brexit. The rare times this government talks about Brexit is when they're claiming that the successful vaccine rollout was only possible due to Brexit. And this is simply not true. Britain always had the right to opt out of the EU's regulatory directives. And when any of the cabinet dimwits is actually challenged with this fact, they immediately change the subject to flying Union Jacks on public buildings or how racism no longer exists in Britain at all. Where are these amazing stories of Brexit success? The only ones I've seen are the ones paid for by the government and presented as editorial content in some newspapers. Brexit done? We've not even made a clean break with the EU yet. The problem of either a border between Ireland and Northern Ireland or between Northern Ireland and Great Britain isn't resolved, and neither alternative is consistent with previous promises and commitments Wurzel-Johnson has made. The only obvious solutions are: 1. To re-enter a customs union with the EU, if that bridge hasn't already been burned by the UK's hostile and belligerent action since Brexit. Or 2. A majority of the Northern Ireland electorate willing to vote to leave the United Kingdom and become a part of the Republic of Ireland and thus part of the EU. But there are many other reasons why the government doesn't want to talk about Brexit. The first month after the UK left the customs union, exports to the EU fell by a disastrous 40.7% compared with the previous month. So to be clear, this is nothing to do with COVID and all to do with Brexit. It's the biggest fall in exports since records began. And for some industries, like whisky and shellfish in particular, the drops have been even more dramatic. The government's narrative is that these are teething problems and exports will soon bounce back. But the British Chambers of Commerce reckon that these changes are structural and long-term. Another reason for Brexiteers' deafening silence on Brexit, apart from telling Remain voters that they lost get over it, is that the promise of restored sovereignty has been shown to be absolutely meaningless. The assertion was that we could now make our own laws without the interference of the pesky EU. But the truth is, we already made our own laws, although they did have to conform to EU standards in a variety of areas. But I've yet to meet a Brexiteer who could tell me one EU law that they didn't like. You usually get a flippant reply, something like banning bendy bananas, which of course was a made-up story in the Sun newspaper, taken as fact by their uninformed readers. The UK's laws after Brexit still have to conform to the minimum standards laid down by the EU, on threat of trade restrictions or punitive tariffs on goods. So when Brexiteers talk about sovereignty, they're really talking about the right to make laws that provide lower standards than those required by the EU. But in practice, who really wants lower standards on things like environmental protection, food safety, employment rights, and workplace health and safety regulations? So again, nothing positive and Brexity to talk about there at all. Brexit voters on the traditional left, Lexiteers as they're known, voted for Brexit as they thought it would free up the government to nationalise industries or provide state aid to protect jobs. The idea that any Tory government would take advantage of this ability is quite frankly laughable, which is why Lexiteers aren't talking much about this bluest of blue Tory Brexits either. Meanwhile, there are daily new job losses and small businesses closing because they're no longer able to afford to export to the EU. The Federation of Small Businesses reckon a quarter of their members have ceased selling to the EU because of the extra costs and regulations since Brexit. Liz Truss's Department of Trade is actually advising British businesses to open new facilities within the EU so that they can trade better into the bloc. Billions of pounds of share trading has moved from the City of London to Amsterdam and other EU financial centres like Paris and Dublin and Frankfurt. British immigrants in Spain are being repatriated to their cries of "This isn't the Brexit I voted for." The Environment Secretary, George Useless Eustace, is being sued by the shellfish industry because of misleading claims about Brexit. The lack of EU workers migrating to the UK has seen daffodils rotting in the fields of Cornwall this harvest, soon to be followed by rotting fruit and vegetables as spring turns to summer. Construction projects are falling behind due to the loss of the army of Eastern European workers that the construction industry depended on before Brexit. Thousands of NHS vacancies are going unfilled due to the difficulty of attracting or employing EU staff. Food sector finance company Ogma Partners estimate that Brexit is set to cost the UK between £2 and £4 billion annually in lost food exports. I could go on and on, but one last thought. If Brexit is so great, why aren't these Brexiteers happy? They seem angrier than ever from what I can tell from some of the obscene, racist, sexist, misogynist, jingoistic comments that I delete in the comments section here. A recent blog from Chris Gray, Emeritus Professor of Organisation Studies at Royal Holloway University, identifies the strange phenomenon amongst some Brexiteers of disappointment at having won, because doing so denied them their sense of victimhood and their source of grievance. If the referendum had delivered a decision to remain in the EU, I can't imagine Brexiteers embracing the concept of a festival of not Brexiting, the way that us Remainers are expected to just suck up the festival of Brexit, which is, by the way, just transparently the latest opportunity for this government to put millions more pounds into the pockets of Tory donors and associates.